Michael Malice. First time we came out to Austin was, I think it was like, it's South by Southwest like in March or something?
I don't know.
Okay, first time I came out was to interview Lynn Ulbrich. It was episode 10 of the podcast. I discovered Bitcoin because I was buying stuff on the Silk Road. And then obviously when Ross got arrested, it became a big story in Bitcoin. So I asked to interview her, came out here, turned out it was Ross's birthday. So we did the interview, and it was the show that made me realize, oh, actually, this is important. Like, we can have fun, but this story that people hear was important. This job's important. It's not a hobby. I'm going to make this a career. But when I came out, I was in the cheapest hotel. Like, if I had no money, cheapest hotel in Austin. And I would have my little case with my mics. There was no cameras back then. I had one camera for that one. I tried to video it, and I was terrible. And I met this girl, Brandy, who you're going to meet, and she, we were just hanging out, and then over the years I kept coming back, but they went from that shitty motel to the Sheraton to, what's the haunted hotel?
The Driscoll.
Right? The Driscoll, and then an Airbnb, and then like a better one. And she said, I've measured your career through where you stayed in Austin over the years.
Well, is it your career or is it Bitcoin? Let's be fair.
Come
on, Peter.
I think Bitcoin drives the career.
Well, yeah. That's...
yeah. But yeah, so that Ross one, that was important.
Oh, yeah. No shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I wouldn't vote, but if I had a vote and I was American and I believed Trump would do it, I would.
I'm
my vote.
positive he would do it for two reasons.
Yeah.
First of all, I am fairly sure that he was ready to do it in the first term. And it was the attorney general who kind of slow walked it. And second of all, it aligns with his incentives because it's his way to say F you to the deep state. Okay. And it costs him nothing. So I had Dinesh D'Souza on my show, and he had gone, or he'd been convicted of some kind of campaign felony. It was some nonsense, clearly politically motivated. And Ted Cruz just called up Trump and said, you should commute Dinesh D'Souza's sentence. And he's like, okay. Like, that was it. So I think people... people don't appreciate to what extent a lot of these pardons are just like, like, here, sign this. Yeah, okay. They don't always get as vetted as they should, which is why Trump is pardoning like rappers and like Rod Blagojevich, who was a former Democratic governor of Illinois, just like all sorts of things. So it happens it especially happens on their way out. But he couldn't do stuff on the way out because of January 6th. And my understanding is Mitch McConnell or Mitch McConnell's people sat him down and go, listen, you start freeing like Assange, like, we're coming for you and your family, which ended up happening anyway. But like, the president isn't, especially when he's much of an outsider to the party as Trump was, isn't as inoculated from party pressure as, as people might think.
And hopefully with Ross on the way in, it'll be a lot easier. Well, on the way out.
I actually was really bothered this week because I tweeted out after Trump announced at the Libertarian Convention that if elected president, I'm going to pardon Ross or commute Ross, whatever he said. I said, hey, Joe Biden, at Joe Biden, wouldn't it be great to make an asshole out of Trump? You can pardon Ross today. Don't let him have this issue. And some people were like, well, it would still be Trump freeing him. We're like, do you think Joe Biden reads his mentions? I'm like, I'm trying to say
for like, cares? Let's get this guy out.
Yeah, like this is your time to be actually, like, you people are the worst. Like, you never know if that tweet got enough traction, if some Democratic operatives like, yeah, let's get him out. Well, it's not impossible.
They've kind of flipped an order. I mean, I want to say Bitcoin, but crypto stuff in the last couple of weeks. I don't know if you've been following.
I have not.
Yeah, so
because I know Elizabeth Warren was on the warpath about Bitcoin.
Yeah, she has an anti-crypto army, and Gensler, like, so the thought
it's a tribe, not an army.
Yeah, it's a tribe. Yeah, it's a tribe, but it's a tribe that doesn't really understand what they're doing, and it's one of these weird things where it's a bit like this. Somebody explained to me with Clinton, the reason Clinton did very well is he ignored the radical left because he knows they vote for him anyway. He went for the center.
Well, no. So it's more specific than that. So Dick Morris, who was President Clinton's advisor, talked about this at length at the time.
Yeah.
And he was later disgraced because he was like with hookers, and he called like the president in front of the hooker to impress her. It was just like real great guy.
Who is this guy?
Dick Morris. He was advisor to President Clinton. He was also advisor to Trent Lott, who had been Republican, I think, Senate Majority Leader, Senator from Mississippi at the very least. And as Dick Morris told it, because after 94, when the Republicans took over Congress for the first time in 40 years, Clinton was like I don't know what to do. Am I totally effed? And Dick Morris says, okay, running for re-election in 96, he goes with his right foot, he steps forward. These are the Republicans. His left foot, he steps to the left. These are the Democrats in Congress, and he steps 1 foot forward. That'll be you. So they campaigned on triangulation, meaning we're not the crazy radical Newt Gingrich Republicans, and we're not these crazy leftist Democrats that you voted out in droves in the 94 election. I'm in the middle. And it was a brilliant strategy. And what people don't appreciate especially in America, I can't speak on British politics on this. I think it might be it's dumber there because it's more unitary. Like the distinction between the Tories and Sir Keir is I think academic probably in certain ways. Mm-hmm. It's certainly what's his name? Rishi's no Margaret Thatcher, to put it mildly, right?
He's like a school teacher.
Yeah. So the idea that people don't realize that there's this expression that only Nixon could go to China because Richard Nixon had such credentials as a hardcore anti-communist that if he's going to go to China and toast Chairman Mao, there's no one to the right to criticize him, so he could get away with it. Whereas to someone from the Democratic Party, the Republicans would be up in arms. You're selling out to the red Chinese. This is a dictator, blah, 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 right? So when Clinton, who's on the left of center party, he had welfare reform. He had the first balanced budget in like decades. These are things where if the Republicans try to do, the Democrats are digging their heels. But if it's a Democratic president, like there's really not anyone to outflank him. So it was Lawrence O'Donnell, let the hammering stop from MSNBC, who made this point on the McLaughlin Group at the time, because he said Clinton went from being the most leftist president in 50 years to being the most conservative, because the idea of a balanced budget and like an end to entitlement reform is something Reagan wouldn't even dare to dream of, and he pulled it off.
Right. And so in the history of presidents, how do you rate Clinton? Because I know you're
George
an anarchist, you
Will.
probably hate all of them, but
I don't hate all of them equally.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, like
exactly.
as an anarchist, I hate government, but listen, if there's food stamps and it's inefficient and wasteful and a lot of the food gets thrown out and maybe people eating too many Oreos, I don't care. Like I don't want starving people. So as far as, and I'd rather the money be going to like starving kids than bombing kids. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
This is not, I hate both, but come on, this is not a hard distinction to make. George Will, who's just really this kind of way past his prime, like clearly on the spectrum, awful conservative. The only clever thing he's ever said is Bill Clinton is not the worst president, but he's the worst person to ever been president. Now, I don't know that that's any longer true, and I think Nixon is probably a worse person than him in many ways. But in retrospect, the Clinton presidency, because it was so tempered by this resurgent Republican Party, really was quite successful despite his personal reprehensible behavior.
Which parts of his behavior were reprehensible?
The raping.
What?
The rapes.
Huh?
Juanita Broderick.
I don't know any of this.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, look, my US history is limited.
Yeah, so when the impeachment was going on and they were trying to pretend that perjury is okay if it's about like blowjobs, which is just complete nonsense. It's perjury.
Obviously, we know all that bit in the UK.
Okay. So, well, what happened at the time, ABC News interviewed a woman named Juanita Broderick, who had been a Democratic Party operative, who had been working for the Clinton campaign in some capacity or whatever. She'd been a nurse. This is in the 70s in Arkansas. And he's like, hey, let's have a meeting. And as she tells it, he went back to her hotel room and raped her. And I had her on my show. And I brought up Thatcher earlier. I believe her because there's only 2 times I've seen this happen where their affect is perfectly calm, but they start crying, and there's this disconnect between the eyes and the mouth. And the other time I've seen that was the first interview Thatcher gave after she was kicked out of Number 10. And she's very calm, but like the trauma, it's really disturbing to watch this binary emotion. So when Juanita Broderick was talking about this rape, according to her, she was just like being matter of fact, but it was also like the tears. So it was really like, it wasn't like crying like you and I would be crying if, God forbid, some of your family died, you'd be a mess.
Yeah.
It was just very matter of fact. The verbiage, but the emotion was very distraught. And ABC News, who, as all major news media outlets are of the devil, sat on this story because they didn't want to influence the impeachment. So, and the thing that's interesting is, according to Juanita Broderick, as he bit her lip as he was doing it, and as he left, he said, "You should put some ice on that." And then another woman, I think it was Kathleen Willey, who also said that Clinton forced himself on her. He bit her lip as well, and neither of them knew each other, and they both independently had that same very specific detail. And at the time, there's a woman named I'm a complete blank, Andrea Dworkin. She was the prototypical fat lesbian feminist. She's like 300 pounds. You know, she was at the time these radical leftists who were very anti-pornography. That was her beat. And she had this whole tear, goes, like, none of these women in power supported us. They all fell in line. None of them spoke out against him. They knew it was true, but they were completely useless. And you have to give credit. Andrea Dworkin is like has a screw loose, and people can look her up. She's very famously accused incorrectly of saying that all sex is rape. But she was one of these lefty feminists who were like, you are giving a pass to a man simply because he's in power and doing things you like, which is exactly what feminism is supposed to be against. We're supposed to be fighting for unempowered women against powerful men who use their power to impact women who are weaker than them and exploit them, sometimes in a physical way.
Are these the people Steve Bannon brought out during the...
Yes.
Yeah.
Not Andrea Dworkin, obviously, but Juanita Broderick was one of them. Kathleen Willey was another one.
Wasn't there like about 7 or 8 women?
No, there were 4. It was Kathleen Willey, Juanita Broderick, the one that they said came out of a trailer trash, I forget her name, and the 4th was a kid who had been assaulted as a child, and Hillary Clinton had been that person's defense attorney, which I guess you could kind of give a little bit of a pass. The defense attorney has to do their job, you know what I mean, so on and so forth. Although there's audio of Hillary laughing about it, but that's neither here nor there.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Well, back to Elizabeth Warren.
Yes.
So-
I got her socks on. Let's see.
Isn't she like, is it 3%?
0.
Oh, 0.
Yeah.
She's made it up.
Yes.
So Gensler, chair of the SEC, previously MIT had a number of courses on Bitcoin and blockchain. And so when he got chair of the SEC, the assumption was that he might be someone who'd be a little bit more pro or supportive of what the Bitcoin people have been trying to achieve. And there's been a decade of applications for ETFs.
Okay.
Yeah. And so what happened is when Elizabeth Warren started her anti-crypto army, the thought...
Can I ask, because
Yeah.
this is germane, what is their argument against crypto? Is it racist? Is it climate change? What the issue they have with it?
Well-
is that people are going to evade the law?
So I think it comes from like what your background is what you understand it. I mean, I can't tell you what their position is. I know Elizabeth Warren has made claims that it's bad for the environment.
Okay,
it's
climate change.
Yeah, using too much energy.
Okay.
Terrorists, criminals, pedophiles, all that kind of stuff.
I love the idea that like somehow like if you give a terrorist like a pallet of fiat money, they're like, oh no.
Yeah.
I need a digital wallet. I'm not going to spend US dollars. Like it's such a. I remember, and Peter, I'm sure you saw this as well. There was a headline, maybe it's Forbes or like Business Week, which some kind of a malevolent publication. I don't think Forbes is that malevolent. And it was like white supremacists are now using Bitcoin. It's like, you know what else they use? Rulers, shoes,
mobile phones,
thermostat, thermometers. Like, people use currency.
Well, listen, there's a bigger thing. I'm going to put a note so I don't forget to tell you about this samurai thing. But yeah, so it's all the traditional things that have been fed from the media, because the media often talks about this.
Yeah.
So I think it's a lack of education, real understanding.
Oh, whoa. I'm going to have to cut you off because Elizabeth Warren is very bright, very educated. She knows what she's doing. Don't give her this pass.
Well,
maybe her people under her, but come on.
No, I give the pass because the people I know who work up on the Hill, they say most of policy comes from the staffers. So it goes through the staffers, and then she found a thing to grab hold on. And I think she's, this is her mistake. I think she saw it as a voting block. Okay, there was these Republicans, these oil and gas people who now like Bitcoin, which is bad for the environment. Ted Cruz likes Bitcoin. The Texans like Bitcoin. Well, we have to oppose that. And so I think she saw it as a voting block.
Peter, I'm even though I haven't looked into this, I would bet money that she knows that Bitcoin's a threat to the Fed and to
there's
financial hegemony. She knows how finances work. She's very smart in that issue. So there's no way she's going to be this against it unless she understands what the good thing about Bitcoin is. It takes power out of the Fed.
Yeah, but I think that is one of the things. But that's a flip in her career. Because if you look,
Of course, she used to be Republican.
well, and she used to fight against the Wall Street people.
Yes.
But I do think she thinks it as a voting block because of the way she put it so frontline in her campaign.
Okay.
But the mistake is I don't think you win votes by being against Bitcoin or crypto, but I think you can win votes being for it.
No, but it's not about votes. I think it's about contributions. That's what it is. It's so she's like, I'm the anti-crypto guy. So the people who crypto's a threat to, the banks or whoever, they're gonna feel comfortable funneling money to her. Because before she was the anti-bank lady.
Well, we know that as well because she had a Senate testimony hearing whereby who was it? I can't remember. It was one of the guys from the banks was spoon-fed information to speak about the anti-crypto stuff from the Senate testimony hearing, and I'm trying to remember who it was.
I'm sorry, I'm still stuck on this. Like terrorists use Bitcoin.
I know.
They also use planes. Should we ban planes? Like that's what 9/11 was, right?
Yeah, but also if you sit in front of a terrorist and say, "Here's a pallet with $1 million." And here's a Bitcoin hardware wallet with $1 million. Oh, here we go.
Thank you, Senator Tillis. I just want to follow up in the same area.
Thanks, Jamie.
And if I can, I want to lay a little background here. In November, after reports that Hamas had received millions of dollars in crypto funding in the months before its terrorist attack on Israel, Treasury wrote a letter requesting Congress's help in closing the gaps in our anti-money laundering rule. Deputy Adeyemo, can you explain why you sent us this letter? What were you seeing that caused
Hold on. Can we just
to
pause
send
this?
us this letter?
I love the idea that like Israeli companies aren't using crypto. It's just Hamas. Like, I mean, how absolutely disingenuous can you? Oh no, crypto is only for Hamas. It's not even for peaceful Palestinians. Yeah. It's not for these Israeli companies, tech companies. They hate crypto. But what are you talking about?
Yeah, but the thing is because of the blockade in Gaza and the issue with getting money to people in Gaza, there are people who are now in Gaza who are raising money in Bitcoin to send it to people in Gaza so they can buy food and water.
Which is right.
Which is great.
Of course. But she's like, Hamas is using Bitcoin as if no one else is.
Well, we call it money for enemies for a reason.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
No, I just want to have the guys speak.
Okay.
Senators, I spoke to my team about increasingly targeting Hamas's financial network. What I was seeing was the fact that...
Hold on. This looks like one of those movies where the kids are in a business suit and you have like the voice of like, I don't know who would be Kevin Hart, like voicing the character.
It's not actually the guy I was thinking of. Can you just scroll through, just see who else we've got? There was another guy, but like you can tell it's
staged. It's very staged.
Well, one of the things they found,
them,
they found the leaked emails where they were agreeing the questions and answers, which they're not allowed to do.
They're not allowed?
No, I don't think you're allowed to spoon feed the answers. I think you give the questions, but they see if you can find a thing on them spoon feeding the answers.
Is it really that much of a scandal if you give them the answers? You know what the answers are going to be anyway.
I know. I know. So yeah, but on that thing, see if you can also find, because they had to issue a correction because this was then reported on, and they found out that it was such a minuscule amount of crypto, and it wasn't even Bitcoin. I think it was like a stable coin or something. But then they compared it to the amount Hamas had been using the US dollar.
Of course.
And so they had to issue a correction. By the way, did you see it get community noted today?
Oh no, God, this woman.
Did you see the one today though?
No.
Oh, it's fucking brilliant.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Oh, but hold on, before you do that, I should tell you, you shouldn't leave your Twitter open around me or I'll update it and funny things will happen. So you can go look at your mentions right now, Peter, now that we're on the air.
Fuck, what have you done? What have you fucking done?
And you can't delete it because then you're being a bad sport.
I'm over BTs. You fucker. All right, here we go. I'm going to like retweet this. Jesus Christ. You fucking fucked me there. Right, hold on. Fuck you for this. Now I'm. Hold on. This is. Yeah, I'll tell you a funny story of this. So we used to do something at our.
Well, tell them what it says because we're just sitting
Michael
here
Malice
like
has hijacked my phone. He's put I'm over BTC over to ETH.
And well, I also commented, don't leave your phone open around Michael Malice so people know it's a prank. I didn't want to get you in real trouble. No. Pranks aren't fun if there's actual consequences. It has to be something, that's fun for everybody.
Oh, okay. So at work, I used to have this advertising agency. And when people used to leave their Facebook open, we used to do the same.
Of course.
And my favorite one to do was go on to Google and get a baby scan and just tweet the baby scan. So everyone would think they're pregnant.
My other ones I've done is William McKinley, great president or greatest president. Ronald Reagan died with 4 question marks. Andy Warhol died with 4 question marks. What's a compound word? Those are some of the favorites.
This is open warfare now. If you leave your phone around.
Okay. So the rule is
Yeah.
you have to leave it up as long as it's clarified, because
Okay.
then you're being a good sport, right? That's the rule. And the other rule is you can't tweet something that will cause the person actual consequences.
Yeah.
It has to be good fun.
So with you, it'd be, I've changed my mind on Hillary Clinton.
Well, I love her.
I'm voted Debs.
I'm voting Debs. Anarchism's a joke.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When are you and Roseanne Barr going to get your show?
Oh God, I love that woman.
If you two had a show, it would go off.
Oh, it would.
You two together every week. I would watch that without fail.
Okay, so as people might know, Roseanne lives here now.
Yeah.
I've become friends with her. Every single time we text, when I put the phone down, I'm like, holy shit, I'm texting with Roseanne Barr. Like every single time, without exception. And I was talking to her son, Jake. Sometimes I'll like imagine, like have conversations with her, like just whatever. And he's like, yeah, she's like your imaginary friend. And she really is. She's like my imaginary friend.
I can't remember a time in my life before Roseanne. I feel like she's existed since I was born because I used to watch the show.
Of course.
But I didn't realize what a badass she was. Was it Rogan she was on?
She's been on Rogan, yeah.
Yeah. And I was like, holy shit, this woman's a badass.
She's the one.
She doesn't give a fuck.
She doesn't give a fuck.
Doesn't give a fuck.
She was on Sean Hannity after the whole brouhaha with her tweet. And Sean Hannity, and I asked her about this because it's really great having access to her because I could pick her brain. And I go, so Sean goes, what would you say to Val Jarrett if she was here right now? He goes, she's like, do you have her number? He's like, no. He goes, just look at the camera. And she goes, Miss Jarrett, I apologize for what I said. I did not know you were black. I would never say that about a black person. This was not a racial tweet. It was political. It was about the Iran deal. Let's have this be a learning opportunity. Let's all come together and discuss this instead of dividing us as Americans. And also, that haircut's terrible. It doesn't do you any favors. And I'm like, you're being canceled. Your show's taken from you. And she's like, I can't turn it off.
But
she's like, I can't. And the thing is, if she wasn't Roseanne, she'd probably be homeless. Because imagine her in a board meeting or in an office, and she's sitting with a client and she's saying things like this. People are like, what the fuck are you doing?
Well, she's one of those rare people who's probably uncancerable because she doesn't give a fuck and she has enough money to not give a fuck.
I said to her, I go, Roseanne, how is it that you're a 10 out of 10 on charisma and a 10 out of 10 on obnoxiousness? She goes, yeah, I guess I'm pretty unique, huh?
How many people are out there who actually, I can't say everything I want to say publicly like she would, but how many people out there are genuinely like that at the moment? There's not many.
But I think it's also like she can't help herself. So it's not only the courage. It's that like she's just like, she's how she's wired. She was this way since she was a kid.
You should, have you had her on your show?
Oh yeah, a couple times.
I'm going to listen to that. Have you
I
thought
said
of
to her,
doing
I go, Roseanne, I have you on such a pedestal. It took 3 cranes to get you there. Oh, ha, that's like a 6.
Hold on. So, yeah, but if you two did a show together, that would blow up.
It would.
I would, honestly, it would be fucking brilliant.
I don't know if you know this, but there was a magazine, I'm Jewish as well. There was a magazine back in the day called Heb, which was a hipster Jewish magazine. And they had the German issue. And she dressed up as Hitler and did a photo shoot. And ABC News asked her about it because on the picture, she goes, they go, it looks like you're baking Jews in the oven because the cookies. She goes, no. People thought it was Jews, but they weren't Jews. They're Palestinians. So she just fucking doubled down. So I framed that picture of her dressed as Hitler and I wanted her to sign it to Michael, it should have been you. And she wouldn't do it, but she signed it to Michael, you're one smart cookie. Love mom, Roseanne Barr. And I have it next to my mentor, Harvey Picar's sign thing over my desk. So they're kind of looking over me like mom and dad.
She could have said she went to fancy dressed as Trudeau.
Oh yeah. Oh, did you? I was on Tim Pool's show, and I got a Trudeau mask, like cardboard, like cut out of him in blackface, and I was gonna wear it. So I'm like, I'm not in blackface. I'm just dressed as Trudeau. And I asked a couple of people, and one of them was like, "This will end you." So I held it up, but I didn't wear it.
Yeah. So I was in Canada when we were in Canada, January. Great place, loved it. Mainly out in the sticks, but we did end up going to Ottawa as part of it, and it was the weirdest thing ever. It was like another country in a country.
Oh yeah,
and I remember speaking to this guy because we were making a film about the trucker protests. Like we were revisiting it, like different perspectives from rural into the city. And Ottawa was really weird. People were getting visibly upset and angry against people who protested. They said these people should not be protesting.
Right.
It's like, what? How can you think people shouldn't protest?
Right.
Weird fucking
Or
experience.
the idea that they're protesting for no reason.
Yeah. Yeah. These are people who can't work.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, and if they can't work, they can't deliver you your muffins.
Yes, yes.
But so anyway, so the thought is that Gensler's come in, pro-Bitcoin, all these ETFs, they keep blocking. There's no reason to block them. And so we think Gensler's going to come in and be fair, and he continues to block them. And the rumor is that Warren's promised him Treasury Secretary.
How could she? I don't understand.
Because she has influence. So
okay, for Biden.
Yeah.
Okay.
So he would become the new Treasury Secretary.
Okay.
Yeah.
After Yellen, okay.
And so he kept blocking it. And then what ended up happening is Grayscale, who are a large kind of Bitcoin company, they sued the SEC.
And they won. I saw this recently, yes.
Yeah. And so then now we have all these ETFs. Here we go. Oh, look, this is savage. I'll read out. The Israeli bombing of refugee camp inside designated safe zone is horrific. Israel has a duty to protect innocent civilians and Palestinians seeking shelter in Rafah and have nowhere safe to go. Netanyahu's assault on Rafah must stop. We need to immediately cease fire. So the community note is this year, Senator Warren voted to supply Israel with $3.8 billion of weapons and defund the UN's aid
And I
organization.
saw Thomas Massey, this was recently, a couple of days ago, Thomas Massey quote tweeted her and before the note, and he said, you voted to send them those weapons. You paid for those guns, yeah. She's horrible.
Yeah.
And what a phony.
Yeah. Could she ever, can anyone like this ever just been done?
She's done.
But won't she just stick around in Massachusetts as a senator?
it's kind of, she'll stick around kind of like in a herpes kind of way. But she was like a big powerhouse in the Democratic Party until Trump ended her.
Right.
And now she's a punchline.
By the way, what do you make of what happened? Like, explain to the British people at least listening, because
when is this going to air?
this will air, I don't know. What's the influence?
Well, because this just dropped yesterday as we were recording,
yeah. So,
and this is going to be such a dynamic situation.
Well, we'll move quick. So,
Okay.
So obviously, Trump's been found guilty, but I want to give you the perspective of the UK compared to the US, right? I'm here in the US and I see basically three sets of opinions. Very happy left party voters, Democrat voters, laughing, haha, he's going to jail. Very pissed off
MAGA,
Republicans, MAGA,
right of center,
saying that
not just MAGA, right of center. I was wrong, yeah.
But saying he's been targeted, it's bullshit. And then there's a contingent of libertarians who are also saying it's bullshit, and some of them saying, but fuck Trump anyway because he's a politician. I'm not siding with Trump. I'm being critical of Trump, but this is bullshit.
I would guess the median 60% of Americans, which is like a couple standard deviations in either direction, would say he's guilty, but it's bullshit that this is even thought to be a felony in terms of sending someone to jail. And I think that's my position. Like, he obviously paid her off.
Yeah.
But this shit happens all the time. Certainly it's not grounds to put someone in prison. It's just insane. There's lots of grounds to put politicians in prison, but this is clearly, people are like, well, he actually did it. It goes, yeah, but it was the Babylon Bee, I think it was, that says congratulations to Trump for being the first New Yorker to be arrested for a crime. So
Brilliant.
But it just speaks to, like, why was that guy Jordan Neely, who punched an old lady in the face and broke her orbital socket, tried to grab a little girl in the street? He's not going to jail, and he's going to jail for paying off, keep buying silence from a porn star. It's just completely, obviously, the what they call prosecutorial discretion.
Yeah. So, by the way, I was just in New York, and I know you're a fan of New York.
Yeah.
It's really sunk.
Oh yeah, I was just there not that long ago to do Andrew Schultz's show, and I'm just like, I don't think it's because I've been in Austin for almost 3 years now that I've just become, that I start noticing how filthy it is. I think it has gotten significantly filthy, and there is, in the air, there's not this sense of accomplishment and achievement and hope, and like, yeah, it's gross, but we're here, we're going to make something special happen. I found none of that. It seemed so generic, and the New Yorkness that I loved so much seemed to have significantly diminished.
Yeah, it was busy. It was warm when I was there. A lot of people on the streets. The restaurants were full, which it wasn't, the year after COVID. but there was a surprising amount of homeless people and crazy crack eggs
Yes.
yelling at people. I hadn't seen it to that level in New York since I first went in the early 2000s.
Yeah, and the subway was just hard. I've ridden the subway all my life. I still don't have my driver's license. It was much worse than it had been, like, let's suppose 10 years ago. People think, oh, it's always been a 10 out of 10. It was not always a 10 out of 10. And even if it was a 10, they put the dial up to 11.
He's not actually going to go to jail, though, right?
I think, yes.
Oh, you think he is?
So there's two scenarios. One is no one's above the law, and it's important for me as a judge to make sure, blah, blah, blah. The other is putting a president in jail, former president in jail, especially during campaign season, is really going to be traumatic for America. Gerald Ford pardoned Richard Nixon when he became president, saying, look, he suffered enough. We don't want to see a president behind bars. So I don't know which those will win out. I think it seems to me very clear with this judge, it's the former. But I don't know. I think you get an appeal immediately and there'll be a stay. I think the justice system in this country, as effed as it is, really will want to make sure they cross their T's and dot their I's before they put a president in campaign season in jail.
So if he gets an appeal and loses the appeal, but the appeal is after November, what happens? Do they send the president to jail?
Well, they're sentencing him July 11th, which seems unconscionable to me.
Yeah.
Because what the judge needs to do is get all the information about what's the typical sentencing for a crime of this nature or crimes. He's been filed multiple times. And okay, let's hear the low end, the high end, and I can make a determination. That doesn't take 5 weeks. And this is something that is obviously a crucial issue in terms of moving this country forward one way or another. So you would think he'd really try to kind of speed it up, but that's neither here nor there. And if I'm not an attorney at all, but part of the appeal will be staying the implementation of the sentencing, and they'll probably pull it all the way up to the Supreme Court. And I'm sure they'll take those cases very quickly. When it's this kind of stuff, it moves very quickly up to the Supreme Court because you really want to get them to rule in and make a determination.
Okay, strange question. If he was in jail,
Yeah.
could he still be run for president from jail?
Yes, but there have been Congress people who have been reelected from jail, and we've had Eugene V. Debs, who'd been the socialist candidate, ran for president from jail. Woodrow Wilson put him in there, and Warren Harding freed him. But the fact is, I think it is almost a given that if he does go to jail, the Republican Party will pull him from the ticket.
Right. And would they? Okay. So the
Republican Party doesn't love him.
No, I know.
And they'll be happy. They're playing the long game. They're happy to take the L.
Yeah, but
on the other hand, they're going to alienate their base if they do that. So they're in a weird bind.
And do they not love him because he's managed to hold two fingers up to them and say, "Fuck you, I'll just do what I want anyway."
Well, he's like a loose
not
cannon.
playing the game.
Yeah, and he's not. He's not beholden to their donors like they are.
That median 60% you talked about in the UK is going to be a lot lower. The majority of people in the UK will be like, "Haha, yes."
Yeah, but you guys are is disgrace the word? Like I mean,
I just don't think we understand the facts.
No, I think you are just a shell of what you once were. The sun never used to set on the British Empire, and now Rishi Sunak is your prime minister. What the fuck's going on?
Yeah, look, our politics is fucked.
Yeah,
okay, our politics is fucked, and our media is fucked. I think, but what it is most people are going to believe what they've been told. And so they're not getting this nuance. There's not a lot listening to Michael Malice or listen to Rogue or listen to Dave Smith or Tim Paul. That the talking heads in the UK aren't talking about it to the level of detail. Like I have no grasp on US history like you.
Yeah, but that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Like Britain used to be the world leader in terms of discourse and debate and nuance and all these things. I mean, Parliament was like the place where like you have these historic battles of ideas, and now it's I mean beyond a joke. Can I ask one question about UK politics?
Yeah.
I know they're not going to allow my favorite British politician, Diane Abbott, to run as Labour. Is she going to retire? Please tell me she's running again.
I have no idea. I don't know.
I love her so much.
There's a show in the UK, a podcast called The Rest is Politics.
Okay.
It is, I'm trying to, Alistair Campbell, who was Tony Blair's spin doctor, and Rory Stewart, who ran for Prime Minister, who's posh Tory, but he's actually really nuanced and intelligent. Has done a lot of foreign policy stuff, and they do this podcast now. It's really interesting. So it's a guy from the left and the right. They come together and they talk through the issues. You understand their bias, but actually it's very reasonable. And they did an interview with John Major, and he obviously followed Thatcher.
Okay. Yeah.
I don't know a lot about John Major. He grew up in abject poverty in Brixton.
Okay.
Really poor. His dad was a staunch Labour voter, and so it was a surprise for him to become a Conservative Party member and a Conservative politician. But he said the reason he did is, I'm trying to remember this exactly, but I think it was along the lines of the Conservative Party promoted work. They wanted you to work and keep your money. But he said the problem with politics today in the UK is that the previous Tory candidates and MPs used to either come from service, so they'd had discipline, or come from business, so they understood business and had success, and that the traditional Labour MPs had come from unions and understood, and in communities, and understood the social issues. And they said you would have these great debates on, essentially socialism versus capitalism. And he said the problem is now is everyone who comes into politics comes in as someone usually from a highly educated background, or at least a medium educated background, and they become like a young conservative, and they have a career in politics without ever understanding how the world works. And so you've seen both the left and the right in the UK come to the centre. They're both, high tax, big state, big surveillance.
Yeah, technocrats.
Yeah, technocrats. They're all fearful of what they say, what words they say might hurt people. Throw into the mix, we have no First Amendment.
Right.
So I think they've kind of been squashed to the centre, fighting over a handful of votes. The Lib Dems killed themselves when they went into coalition with the Conservative Party because they gave up all their principles for no gain. And so it's still a main two-party system with a slightly influential third party and a fringe Green Party and a few other fringe groups. But essentially, they've just come to the middle. There's no one. I'm not voting.
But hold on, you're missing the big story here because you haven't been following the polls. So we had someone here named Ross Perot who ran in 92 and 96. And when Barack Obama ran in 2008 in the Democratic primary, 2008 in the Democratic primary against Hillary Clinton, it was hers to lose, right? This had been the plan for a long time. And for him, it had to be this tipping point of respectability. And when he won Iowa, which was the first caucus, the first vote of the primary season, and it was a very, very white state, then all of a sudden it's like, wait a minute, this guy has a shot. And the floodgates were open and she never recovered. She won New Hampshire, but then it was just a disaster for her after that.
He was the independent guy. Ross Perot.
Ross Perot was in 92. I'm talking about Barack Obama in 2008. Yeah. In 2008, Barack Obama challenged Hillary for the nomination, which is like, dude, you've been in the Senate for 2 years. Like, let's slow your roll. This is our lady. And when he won Iowa, which is the first nominating contest of that Democratic primary and caucus season, all of a sudden it was off to the races and she never recovered except for winning New Hampshire right after that. Point being, the Reform Party in the UK is now catching up. If you watch the poll, the lines, the Tories have been on after their biggest landslide, I think, in 100 years, the last time against Jeremy Corbyn with Boris Johnson, both of which are now gone from the leadership. It's been a very sharp decline, and Reform has been picking up. Now, Reform is not getting as much traction as it could have, but this is one of the reasons, in my view, and I think it's indisputable, why Rishi called the election now instead of in November, because Reform is now within like 6 to 8 points. And if Reform is perceived as having a possibility of winning and not it being, we're going to split the right of center vote and guarantee this for the Labour to sneak through, this might be the effective end of the Tory party. It's not likely, but it's not impossible.
No, and look,
because they're double digits. They're in third. They're ahead of the Lib Dems.
Reform 12, yeah.
Yeah. But the thing is,
Jesus, I didn't know it was that close.
Can you go to the Wikipedia polling for the next UK election? You'll see the chart and you'll see the trajectory. So the thing is, since it's first past the post, that 12% of Reform is distributed, whereas the Lib Dems are concentrated. So the Lib Dems will actually get seats, and as it is now, Reform won't get any. There, look at that. Look at the bottom right. You see where Reform is in turquoise, and look at the Tories in blue.
No, I have not seen.
Look at that. See,
insane.
So once it reaches a certain point where it's like, wait a minute, we could actually, if they get parity, they're gonna moon.
And the Reform Party is, it's people who don't want to vote for Labour.
But it's also people who want to vote for the Tories.
Yeah, they can't vote for traditional Tories who cannot vote for the Tories. You can't vote for them anymore.
Right.
They don't stand for any traditional conservative politics.
Yeah. What conservative policies have been, you could ask with a straight face, whether you're a leftist, moderate, conservative, what conservative policies has this administration implemented?
I mean,
it's like nothing.
Liz Truss tried.
Right. And they pulled her out in 6 weeks. Yeah. But Rishi, are you kidding?
No. I mean,
him and Sir Keir, it's just like one with a suntan and the other doesn't. Aren't they basically the same guy?
They're basically the same guy. I can't divide them. I actually couldn't tell you either of their policies apart from, I think Richie's made this Hail Mary attempt at a what would feel like a Tory policy, which is national service.
That's a lefty policy.
Yeah, but it feels like it's a policy based on discipline.
Yeah, but the point is, you can imagine the leftists being like, everyone has to have some kind of national service. That is a very lefty mindset.
Yeah, but it's a fucking nuts policy.
Of course, and it's like this is your Hail Mary? Like, it's just crazy. Like, who is your? Do they not have focus groups in the UK? For those who don't know, can you explain to people, because this is so crazy that, please explain it to the audience.
I don't think. Well, they will have focus groups, but it's only as good as the sample. Oh, what the national service?
Yes.
Yeah. So Richie wants to bring back national service. It's I think it's 18 months. I can't remember the age, but I think it's from under 18. It's the people who don't want to go to college. But I don't know the exact detail because it was happened when I was out here. But it's a combination. You can either do military or community work.
Yes.
So it's basically, the way I saw it slightly differently. You've already destroyed the future of our children. Their education is fucked. Okay, they cannot afford to go to university. They can't get jobs. They can't buy houses. They can't get on the housing ladder. And now you're going to turn them into slaves and do slave labor for 2 years.
This is what was so crazy to me, because even if you think this is a good idea, let's assume, which I don't understand anyone who does. So forcing literally every young person to just work for the government or for the community for free, for a pittance. Who is clamoring for this?
Nobody.
As their vote. That's what's insane. At least throw some red meat to your base and be like, you know what? If we're reelected, we're going to do X, Y, and Z.
Look, it came out of nowhere.
We're going to privatize the BBC. Something, anything.
But the only thing is, it did come out of nowhere, but at the same time, I did think there was a time I'd like to send my son for some military discipline.
But you could have done that anyway.
Yeah, I know. Your personal choice. So there's that policy. The only other policy I can think of was the smoking ban, which it's a complete infringement on your rights.
But it's not moving the needle in terms of votes.
No, it's not moving. The only way, this is what I didn't understand, is why don't you just announce a 10% income tax?
Sure.
Cut income tax by 10%, and then everybody's going to go, Tories been fucking terrible. Now, hey, Richie, but I'm going to have a 10% income tax cut. Okay, you've got to cut your budget by 10%. You've got to cut your budget from 1.1 trillion to $1 trillion. Okay, sack a bunch of people in government.
Yes.
Do the Vivek Ramaswamy thing and just all right, half of you are going.
Right. Something.
But there's nothing there. But at the same time, I can't really tell you any Keir Starmer. I've checked out from all of it, to be honest.
I don't blame you. It's a farce.
I probably know a little bit more about US politics than the UK. I'm not going to vote. There's no one to vote for. I don't care. And I know my time is better off spent building companies and making my companies profitable.
Yes.
And spending time with my family. You
Yes.
cannot make a difference. Which, by the way, I've got another interesting story to tell you about that. Ironically. So I'm at war with my local mayor.
Oh, okay, good.
Full public war.
What party are they?
Conservative.
Okay.
I don't know if you know, but local electing mayors, they have essentially dictatorial powers in the council, in the town. And so
the councils are just rubber stamps?
Yeah, they are part of their party. They do have to consider their party. It's hard to get elected without the backing of a party.
Sure.
So if the party dump you, you're not going to get re-elected.
Right.
So you can't push it too far. But this guy, his name's Tom Wootton. His dad is called Ted. He's known as Tesco Ted locally because he had lots of land in Bedford and sold it all to Tesco for millions. They got really rich. We traditionally had this Lib Dem mayor called Dave Hodgson. He's called Dave the Mayor on Twitter. I think he was in for 3 terms, at least 2. So 8 to 12 years. He was fine. He got stuff done. Nothing amazing. Nothing offensive. stand-up guy. We got changed to our high street. We got new shopping districts. We got stuff done.
Yeah.
Anyway, went to vote, but the Tories changed the policies on voting. Can you look up the actual policy change? But it was something to do. They used to have it so after the first round, your vote would go. If your person got eliminated, your vote would go to your second person.
Yeah.
I can't remember what they
Ranked
call
choice
that.
voting.
Yeah, ranked choice voting. They got rid of that and went first past the post. So Bootin Wootton wouldn't have won, but he ended up winning. It was by like 150 votes. So anyway, do you know I own a football team?
Yeah.
We've been very successful. We won the league 2 years in a row. Our ladies have won the league. We set up a hardship fund for kids who can't afford to play football.
Oh, that's wonderful.
And so, yeah, and if your parents can't afford, we'll pay your fees and buy football boots. We're the only ones investing in girls' football in the town. We've done loads of shit. And then we've got Americans that keep flying over to watch games and buying our merch and have heard of Bedford. So we're clearly good. Anyway, about 6 months in, when our lease was about to get renewed for the land, he contacted my brother, who's our secretary, and said, "Oh, we're not renewing your lease. You need to move somewhere else." And my brother's like, "We've just spent 2 years agreeing the terms. We're ready to sign. Like, we sent it signed." He said, "No, we're not going to do it." And so we called a meeting and we went in and we showed him the plan of everything we're doing, all the money and the investment coming in. And he said, "Oh, well, we're next door to another team called Bedford Town." He said, "I know you lot don't get on and they're upset with you because of your flags." Basically, I put these big flags up on our clubhouse so people watching their game would see our flags.
Good. I like that.
A big
Approved.
skull and crossbones. Anyway, he said, "I know you don't get on, so you've got to move." And it's like, it would take 3 to 4 years to build a new ground. If we don't have one in 2 years when our lease ends, we will fold as a club. And he just kept not replying to emails, not turning up at meetings, and was just like... So anyway, we did the research. Turns out he went to school with the guy who runs the other team and they're friends.
Oh, God.
So he called a meeting and this team's scared of us because we're coming out like a train. So anyway, it carried on and on and on. And I ended up bumping into him in the town centre and I just collared him and said, "Look, this isn't on." He said, "No, I'll get it sorted." They ended up sending us a new lease that had basically all these termination clauses that came in after 3 years when his term is up. But one of them was, if the ground is used by anything other than the men's first team, we'll terminate your lease, effectively banning our ladies' team, which he knew existed. So the Football Association gave him a call and said, "What are you doing? You can't ban women." He said, "Well, if the women want to play here, they can write to me and ask for permission." I know, it's a total scandal. So I emailed him and said, "Look, we're ceasing negotiations. What you're doing is a disgrace. You cannot ban women from playing football. This is like shit from the 60s when women were banned." And so then the papers, we told the papers, they got in touch and he said, "Oh no, it was a drafting error." It was obviously a lie because,
It's not,
we had the
it's not
email
like
from-
2 letters were misspelled.
Yeah.
And he acknowledged that was in the agreement.
He wrote to us and said, "Well, we'll remove it." But it's not, and if it is a drafting error, well, then you're a moron because you haven't read through the draft. Right. So anyway, I've now declared full public war with him and I've gone for him really fucking hard publicly. I've called him out on all his failed policies. I've found out that he's not doing work. So he's had things taken away from him. So I think it's a weird thing for a town like ours to experience because usually a mayor just does a job and everyone listens. And then you've got this lunatic like me who's just like, "Fuck you."
Can I give you some Soviet advice?
Yes, please.
Being born in the Soviet Union, you have decent money, yes?
I'm okay.
If I were you and I had the money to burn, I'd put him under surveillance and I would tell him that he's under surveillance.
Huh.
It's not gonna. You can afford it. It's only for a couple of months. It'll make him crazy.
That's not a bad shout. So the other thing, this is what I really want to talk to you about. So the other thing I've been thinking about is running for mayor.
Don't do it.
No, but hear
He'll
me
run
out.
the table on you.
How do you mean?
He'll run the table on you.
What does that mean? What do you
Like
mean?
he'll win.
Oh, he won't win. I've got so much public support locally.
Yeah, but you Peter, these people play dirty. Like, do you understand where you're getting yourself into? These are gangsters.
This guy isn't a gangster. Get him up. Get Tom Wood up.
But he's got
he's
a gang,
farmer.
But he's got a gang behind him.
Yeah, but I can have a gang behind me.
Okay, I've said my piece.
Well, look, let me tell you why.
Do you want that huge pay cut?
I don't
know.
I don't.
Are you kidding me? This?
Yeah.
The fuck is that?
Yeah.
What is going on in your country?
I know.
What the fuck is that?
Yeah, that's our mayor. That's the old one.
Is that Dave the Mayor?
Yeah, I think.
What is that thing? It's like Grimace without a suit. Do you know Grimace? Do you have him there from McDonald's?
No.
Can you pull up Grimace? Grimace.
We had our first meeting with him.
He's Grimace. He looks like Grimace under the suit. Fuck.
So listen, I have got a lot of public support. Everyone sees what we're doing with the football team. I won an award in Bedford. I won an award for who'd done the most to promote the town. I set up a fund for kids. Like, I've got support, and if I run with another party, say the Lib Dems, I would have full party support. And I don't care if he plays dirty. All my past is in the history. People know I've done drugs and whatever.
Well, just okay.
But this is my thesis. If I win, what I want to do is, I won't actually do the job. My brother will do the job. I will just be policy and.
So why don't you have him run?
Well, but I don't know how much of a chance my brother has of winning. I think I have a chance.
Okay.
But what I want to do is I want to strip out all the bullshit that they say, and I'm going to say my policy is very simple. I'm cutting tax every single year I'm here, and we have to find a way of eliminating services to do that. And that's it.
Okay.
I just did
And the Lib Dems are going to allow this? Those are Tory policies.
Well,
ostensibly.
Well, so I know I'd have to do. I know with the Lib Dems, I'd have to convince them, like, we can win together, but these are my policies. This is the bit I'm not moving on, is the 1% reduction in council tax every year I'm there.
Well, then you got to talk to, what's his name? Pete the Mayor. Whatever, what was his name? Dave the Mayor.
Already seen him.
Okay. If you have his endorsement, then you could go somewhere.
Yeah. So I'm thinking about, I'm just thinking about it. Obviously, Michael, the other side of me is like, what?
It's a lot of work. It's a lot of, you have to talk to these simpletons.
Yeah, I know.
It's really hard. I mean, I'm sitting here, it's killing me right now.
But it's killing me watching them crush my town. Like, these people interfering.
Yes. Listen, I left New York. So what they did to New York is nothing like what they did to Bedford, obviously.
Yeah.
But I hear you, and it's like a knife in the heart.
I think what they did to New York was worse.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying. Yeah.
But I'm not going to leave Bedford.
Correct.
Yeah.
But I'm saying I feel your pain. I know what it's like when something you love and a place you cherish is being shat on for no reason.
Yeah. But my thought is, if I can get on the inside, I want to get on the inside and see, can you throw hand grenades and can you actually change things?
Yeah, but that's what Trump thought also, and now he's going to jail. Not that you're going to be as big a threat to the machine as he was, but yes.
Yeah, I know. But he's a threat to the global.
Yes.
The global reserve currency.
Yes.
and the deep state.
You're a threat to ladies soccer.
The deep state of Bedford is the Bedford Club on Paris Avenue where they play snooker.
Is that true?
Yeah, no, they do. So it turns out. So I wrote this public letter and I called them a bunch of dorks. I mean, look, private people can do what they want in private, but it's a men's only gentlemen's club where all the old private school boys go and hang and they don't want women around them. I think is a bit antiquated. I think it's fun to make fun of them, but private people should do what they want.
Yeah, of course.
But yeah, so I'm thinking of doing it. The reason I wanted to bring it up with you is like, what would be the most Michael Malice way of doing it?
Well, it wouldn't be a Michael Malice way of doing it because my whole strategy is to be very divisive, and I try very much. I'm a velvet rope person. I want to alienate the people I don't want in my audience, right? I want there to be cost of entry because I want to build sleeper cells and not stadiums. So my strategy would be the exact wrong. Like a lot of times people will be like on Twitter or other places like, why are you so abrasive? If you came at me with an open mind, you might persuade me. And I'm like, I think you'd be a net cost. So that's exactly the wrong approach because with you running for mayor or anyone else, every vote matters and every vote's equal and fungible. So what I would do is I do a lot of focus groups. I'd figure out what issues people care about, pander to them on those. I'm sure they're going to be fairly reasonable, to be honest. If it's like local Bedford elections, it's not going to be some kind of radicalism.
No, it'd be a new bus shelter.
Yeah, or something like that. And promise that and see that you could deliver it, do the math.
Yeah.
And I'd say, I'm going to be here for one term and I'm out.
One term.
Yeah.
Well, if I could reduce tax every year for 4 years and leave, you set the standard.
No, you don't.
Well, you can set a standard that is
Right.
possible.
Sure, but then they're going to say he's cut taxes too much, so I have to raise them.
Yeah, and it's what
These people are shameless. You know
oh
this.
no, I know that, but it's like, you know, I just had this guy in.
In fact, I'd ask you, if I was you, sorry to interrupt you, I would interview all the former mayors and ask them, have them even on your show. They'd love the attention. What got you elected? What policies work here in Bedford? What policies cost you support? How could you gauge the gain in support or loss of support? Because they don't have these meters that are like currency where it's like changing every second, and have them do your work for you.
Well, I might go for it.
Okay. It's going to cost money too.
Yeah, but it's not a lot. I've looked into
Okay.
this. It won't even cost £100,000.
Wait, seriously?
Yeah, they don't spend a lot.
Oh,
Yeah, basically, whoever it is, they usually put up some posters in the town. They go to a few meetings. They knock on some doors, shake hands, because usually the party does the work for you. If I ran as an independent,
can I say one more thing?
Yeah.
You got the perfect line. You ready? This is going to appeal to lefties and Tories and to Lib Dems. Protect women's football. So it sounds like you're being against the Leah Thomases of the world. So the Tories will have that dog whistle. Feminists will appreciate it. And it's also true.
Can I be more antagonist? Protect women from Tom.
Yeah.
What do you mean you voted for the misogynist?
Yes.
But anyway, like I say, it's
And then you should sell pink footballs with his face on them. So every girl can have a kick at his face.
we put it. What did I put out? The tweet with the I was trolling. Our ladies team won the treble. They won every trophy, and so I put a tweet out trolling him on it.
Yeah, but put a football with his face on it.
So the thing is, if I ran independent, that's where it gets expensive.
Okay, yeah, you don't want to do independent. You need party support. People are, when Upton Sinclair, who was a prominent American writer from the early 20th century, he ran for, as a socialist repeatedly, and then he got the gubernatorial nomination in 34 as a Democrat, and his point was, people are going to vote for the party that their grandfather voted for. Like, that's just how it is. So it would be nuts, in my opinion, to run as an independent, especially when you have a three-party system. And in effect, the Lib Dems are almost independent.
Yeah.
You know, they don't really have as much of a character on a local level.
Yeah, because I think a lot of, to echo that, a lot of people will turn up and they will tick the one they've always ticked. And then you've got this very small amount of swing votes, which is people I know or people who I know who can have a bit of influence.
Yes.
And then you can probably, because I've got some voice in the town, I can be a bit of a loudmouth on certain issues and scare them off. Did you find it?
There's like 6 tweets from you about something.
Oh, so this is funny. So one of the councillors who was campaigning against us, we found a bunch of photos of them going to watch the rival team.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and is there the one other photo of her wearing the team's shirt?
The mayor's a liar. I love that.
Yeah, the mayor's a liar. Yeah, there's her. So that's the mayor and the councillor who worked against us, and she's wearing the team's jersey.
He looks like Grimace even more in that picture.
There was the one where I just had the No Bloody Women one. I don't know if that would come up. Maybe I'll put it on Facebook. I posted a picture of our ladies with their treble and the picture of him with a speech bubble of No Bloody Women.
Yeah.
No, he's horrific. It's the other thing is I've discovered a lot about how the council runs, and what's really interesting. So I'm trying to open a cafe in the town for my football team. So we have a shop and an advert in the town, and a cafe will make £150,000 a year, but you have to pay £16,000 a year business rates just to exist. So that's going to be anything from 10 to 20% of your turnover.
Yeah.
But they've got this new thing called the bid, which the council set up and enforces, but is run by an independent body, and it's 2% of whatever you pay in your taxable rate goes to the bid, who does marketing and promotion in the town. And obviously they're terrible at it because they're not a free market marketing agency. But to me, it's like racketeering.
Yes, it is.
Even worse, they have a vote. I don't know if it's every year or every 2 years, whether they should keep the bid, but the council gets a vote for every empty shop, and there's enough empty shops for them to swing the vote.
Oh, God.
But the reason we got all the empty shops is because no one can afford to keep their business going.
There's an incentive to keep them empty.
Yeah. So we've got this town which is collapsing. We've got our own version of New York where we've got crackheads and alcoholics. And I even saw somebody in a tent for the first time in Bedford. It's like this horrible managed decline. And so hence why I want to run for mayor, to see if I can make change.
When would that happen? Is that this year?
No, I have to announce in a year. No, it's 3 years. I've got 3 years.
Oh.
Yeah, I've got ages.
Oh, okay.
So you announce in a year, although
Okay.
I'm kind of announcing why people listening that I'm thinking about it. And then you campaign for 2 years. And then if you win,
Why don't you do right now? It won't cost that much. Get a little poll. See if the election were held today, how would you do against him, just one-on-one? And I think that'd be very informative.
yeah, but if I've got to see where would I do the poll, because most people wouldn't have heard of me.
But that's interesting. If his number is low, because here this obviously is different there, because you're gonna have 3 or 4 parties. But here it's when you have these. For example, it's like a Democratic senator from Michigan and her Republican is some unknown. If she's at like 39 and he's at 20, that's really bad, because if you're the incumbent, your number should be up over 50 automatically.
Yeah.
So that means there's 61% of people who are already ready to vote against you. So if his number, even if your number is going to be much lower than his, is like some pretty low number, that'll be very informative.
What happened? Didn't the poll shift yesterday or 2 days ago, 3 days ago, when this conviction happened?
Well, the conviction happened yesterday, so they couldn't have had polling
Was it
since.
yes? I thought I saw something's gone up 6%, and he raised.
Trump's gone up 6%?
That's what I read. He went up
There's no
6%,
way.
and he got another 35 million in donations.
The money, I'm sure, but there's no way they could have polled that quickly.
I don't know how they do the polling.
Yeah, there's no way. It could be some kind of internet poll, but those are not scientific at all.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. What is? So I mean, look, what your your observations and knowledge of history of politics is really like incredible. Any topic I bring up or anyone I bring up, you seem to know their entire history. But do you think of ways for there to actually be effective change from this swamp that we have of politics, or are we just stuck with this forever in this slow decline?
I'm one of the big proponents of national divorce. To your point, I don't see. I think it's very clear. You have many Congress people, and the only time they're telling the truth is when they're like retiring in droves, and they're like, this place is a mess. Like, we can't. I had Justin Amash on my show. He's a former congressman from Michigan, and he's like, I'm like, is Washington more like Veep, or is it more like House of Cards? He's like, it's more like Veep, because, but you don't understand. No one cares about policy. And I think back to when I was in college. I took a course at American University, and the professor, who's still just an awful person, and he still teaches there, and he's still in the same job he had in '97, and the greatest accomplishment he had was having me as a student. And his wife was a real, sow. Point being, every time we'd have a different speaker. And I remember there was a lobbyist who came, and he said, here's how it works. I can take a bill, and I want to pitch it to the Democrats, and I'll call it the Farm Fairness Bill. And then I cross it out, and I go to the Republicans, and I call it the Farm Freedom Bill. And it can have literally the same language, and that's exactly how you sell it, right? Patriot Act. You want to be a patriot, don't you? Come on, Peter.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't I want? I love this country. Patriot. Yeah, 9/11 just happened. I want patriot, and sign me up.
Yeah.
So it's completely farcical. When people talk about the, Republicans are going to be a check on runaway spending, we saw Trump had a Republican Congress. There was not $1 of Obama's budget that was cut. If you went back to the beginning of Obama, 2008, which is when the budget was half what it is now, you'd sound like a lunatic. So there's no appetite in DC from either party toward moving the budget at all, or else they'd be running on it. And there's no appetite with the people either. That's the thing.
Is that because it's become a stalemate, or because it's not the right characters of people there? It's like, is this an organic problem that's just...
I think it's inherent in the democratic process. People are going to vote for more stuff for themselves, and someone else is going to be paying for it. And the thing is, when you have deficit finance spending, you could just run that credit card until it's too late. This is one of the benefits of Bitcoin, obviously, as opposed to fiat. With fiat, they're just going to run those machines at a certain point. Everyone. And the thing with fiat that's also insufferable, as you and everyone listening to this can appreciate, is it fucks over the poorest people first.
Yeah.
When inflation hits, if you and I lose, let's suppose 10% of our money, it would suck. If I'm at the working poor and I lose 10%, that's a major change in my lifestyle. And it's horrific what is happening to these people. And no one gives a fuck about them.
Yeah, so there's an organization called FreeOp, a guy called Ovik Roy runs it. I think you'd really get on with him. I was with him last night, and he did a study. He said even like we had 10, 12% inflation, 15, whatever. He said even at 2% inflation, it has a massively compounding effect on the poor.
Yes.
It's the poorest who get absolutely fucked the most.
And first.
Yeah, first and the most. Their wages don't catch up. Often they're in jobs where maybe their wages are tied to specific bands. You know, so like government workers always struggle because it's bad. You know, in the UK, teachers and nurses, they're the ones having to, you know, go through unions to campaign because a 2% rise for every nurse it's a big bill for the government.
Of course, yeah.
I made a film with the UK on inflation, and I went to a food bank, and I met a nurse there, and I was like, trying to find out from her, what happened to her life. She's just said, I cannot afford to pay for my rent and feed myself on a nurse's income.
Wow.
Isn't that fucking shocking?
Yes.
So this inflation thing, it's fucking terrible. And all I see is just a massive increasing spending all the time.
Yes. Massive. It's been escalating.
Yes. And it's it's even worse. Inflation is 10% for both of us is particularly bad. But if you have assets, if you have Bitcoin, you have gold, you own equities, maybe you own certainly houses, it actually benefits you.
Yes.
You actually get richer.
It's a transfer from the poor to the wealthy.
Yeah.
Which is the opposite, I would think, of any kind of policy, like the most perverted. Like, I'm not in favor of progressive income taxation, but the idea that you're going to rob the poor to pay the rich, this is just a perversion of basic decency.
So are there any realistic proposals or ideas behind a national divorce? Do you think it's a realistic thing?
You guys just left the EU, right?
Yeah, but leaving the EU is us as a sovereign country leaving a union. And I know you're a union of states, but you're more of a country. You're not like 52 separate countries.
Sure, but culturally, we're not 52 separate countries, but we're certainly not one.
Yes.
So even though as a Texan, I speak the same language as someone from Boston, we're not functionally in the same culture. Or the same country. You only say that because one only says that because Washington basically forces us all into one big blob. But culturally, intellectually, and every other way, we do not share the same values. We just share the same language. And that's decreasing the case as both, there's more than two sides, but for simplification terms, two sides are going to even speak about certain issues using different verbiage. So even the language is kind of disintegrating as a means of communication. And frankly, our political discourse is not meant to communicate, it's meant to manipulate, right? Like it's just framed in a certain way to kind of force the outcome you want. So I think you're going to have increasing movement in that direction. And again, I could be wrong. Just because I can't imagine something, you can't imagine something, doesn't mean it can't happen. I hate that. We're like, well, I've never heard of this. Well, it doesn't mean it can't happen. But I was just going to say, my point is, I can't imagine a situation where after the November elections here, half of the country is like, okay, I'm cool with this.
Good luck, Trump.
Or good luck, Joe.
Yeah.
I don't see it.
You want a fair fight.
Right. Like people were pissed, and when Obama was, the Republicans were pissed, but there wasn't this idea of like, they're going to fight him, but there wasn't this idea of the system is screwed beyond recognition. That was the case a little bit in 2000 with Bush and the little hanging Chad situation in Florida. But this is for the first time in my lifetime where both parties and the people behind them are at the point where if they don't win, both sides will not regard the outcome as legitimate anyway.
It will definitely go to the courts. It will definitely be accusations in public.
But that's the thing. In 2016, if Trump had lost, the Republicans would have been like, all right, like, what did we expect? They're too powerful. Everyone collaborated for Hillary, but there wasn't this sense of like, she didn't really win. But if Biden pulls it out in 2024, they will think they'll point to the crime stuff, the felonies, and they'll be like, this is completely legitimate and bullshit. And they're not entirely wrong.
If it's the other way, so it's like, I know what happened with the Republican voters, the MAGA crowd, because they felt like the previous election, it was stolen from them. And I also know there's obviously Democrat voters who feel like Trump tried to subvert the results. I'm aware that all happened. I can visualize what Republicans and voters will do if Biden wins this time?
No, you can't.
Well, a little bit. I mean,
I think it's going to go off the chain.
yeah, like what I mean is I don't think it would be accepted. And the way they...
Right, yes, correct. Yeah,
and how they won't accept it, you know, I don't know how extreme
That's right. We're on the same page.
Yeah,
Yes.
how extreme that gets, I don't know. They've got the guns. If it's the other way though, and Trump wins, and there'll obviously be a number of people very upset and screaming and such. But how do they react? Because I'm less fearful of them when they lose in terms of I'm less fearful of them pulling out their guns.
Correct, but we don't know what it will look like because, again, we remember we had 3 years or 4 years of hashtag not my president, that Putin stole this election, this idea that when the military lied to the commander-in-chief, who was Trump, he was cheered by the media that, like, this guy isn't really president, so you don't have to inform him, which is treasonous, frankly. I don't really care one way or another, but, like, if this was any other president, there would be scandals and, like, looking into things and so on and so forth. It'll depend on how the Republicans fall in line in Congress and otherwise. But listen, people don't remember this, but during the Trump presidency, William Weld, former Republican governor of Massachusetts, was on CNN openly calling for his execution. He said, in his words, what Trump has done, I think it was the Ukraine call, is treason. And I remind you that the punishment for treason is death. So when you have already the beginnings of, it's kind of like when you're in a relationship and the first person is like, maybe we should see other people, you can't unring that bell. Mm-hmm. When you start talking about assassination of presidents on CNN, you got to be, in my view, and I'm an anarchist, really be careful about putting things out there. And, if that kind of thing becomes normalized, violence sings its own song. And I've made this point on Rogan, and I'll make it again because I think it needs to be made. If middle America started putting up guillotines in this country, the corporate press would be tripping over themselves, laughing at how dull the blades are. These people are so smug, and I say this as a very smug person, and so contemptuous. And you have this in the UK as well, of labor. I don't mean Labor Party, I mean union, blue collar people in middle America, that it's a joke to them that they think they have problems, where the only problems they care about whoever is their little, niche group of the moment.
By the way, have you watched Civil War, the film?
I've not.
It was such a disappointment.
Was it? Okay, yeah.
Yeah. What do you think the film would really be about? What kind of film based on the trailer?
Civil War, what do you mean?
Have you seen the trailer for Civil War?
Yes.
The film? Yeah, like I thought it'd be an action film.
Yes, that's what I thought too.
It's not really. It's
more like civil conflict, it should be called?
No, so do you know what it is? It basically follows the photographers, and it's really unrealistic. Oh. There's these moments where it's
because California and Texas are in a union together, right?
I know.
What the fuck are you talking about?
Well, you know what that was about, though? The director didn't want people to... he wanted to tell the story of what a potential civil war would be, but he didn't want to point the finger at that this is what Trump could do. He was fearful of inspiring. Okay. So yeah, the Western Union of Texas and California.
Right, yeah.
But that kind of breaks it as well. But it was mainly following the photographers. It was really their story. And it was a story of brutality as well. I mean, it's particularly brutal and savage. You see, I don't know if you care, but I've ruined it. But there's you see piles of bodies being put into graves. Like the things that you've been told are happening in Ukraine and Russia,
yeah.
You see it in America. But actually, I think the biggest trick they miss is I didn't want to see this yet. I wanted to see this. I wanted the prequel.
Yeah, right. What popped off?
Yeah, what popped off and why it popped off. And I think they missed the trick with that. So it was disappointing. Okay, national divorce. Is that you're a proponent of that? You're a supporter of that? Does the US ever have referendums, nationwide referendums, which aren't an election?
I don't think it would be a function of referendums.
Huh.
I think it would be a function of
states, or
unilaterally, and then them trying to do something and then being shut up pretty quick. That's how the process would go. Like, for example, if Scotland unilaterally said, "Okay, we're independent," is King Charles really sending in the tanks? Right? At a certain point, it's going to be like, all right, what's going on here? It would be, especially if there was a referendum with, I know it's different over there, but if they had the SNP got their wish and you had another referendum and it was like 65% of Scots voted to leave, and they're saying we want to be part of the EU, we don't want to be part of the UK, I don't think it would be that easy to just be like, well, too bad. I think it would get pretty tricky pretty quickly.
Yeah, I mean, it would be accepted actually.
Okay, yeah.
The results of the referendum tend to be kind of accepted.
Yeah.
We're pretty good at that.
So even though that's a huge chunk of the United Kingdom, I think that would be so if so as of now on the Texas Republican Party's official party positions, there will be a referendum on Texas independence on the ballot. The Texas Republican Party officials try to stifle that. I think it's going through the legal process, but point being, the steps are being made. Now, if you look at it more like Canada, where Quebec tried to do this a few times, and as a result of this, they didn't get independence, but they got a lot of concessions. And in many ways, they just like devolution to Northern Ireland and to Scotland, they got that. That is something that is conceivable. I don't think that's likely. I think it's far more likely that Texas would force its independence than that Washington is going to really give Texas or any other state a huge chunk of its, sovereignty back.
Right. Okay. And so if it was independent, would it just, so I'm trying to understand, would it be an independent country?
Yeah.
It would be an independent
But
country.
I think here's the thing. I think if Texas leaves, it's dominoes.
Yeah, others will join.
Yeah, there's no question.
But do you think it becomes a kind of like a blue-red divide or a blue-red and purple?
I don't think it divides neatly as blue and red. So it's funny because a lot of people are like, well, there's no blue states, there's no red states. These blue states have red populaces in the countryside than blue cities. And so like some people are going to be unhappy. It's like, yes, if Texas leaves, there's going to be a lot of blue state Texans who are going to be unhappy.
Yeah.
And that's the status quo now. There's lots of red state Texans who are unhappy with what's going on in Washington. So there's never going to be a situation where everyone is happy. But if they have choices, you could live if you could live in this new Texas, or you could fuck off back to California, I think it'll be a lot easier to self-sort. One of the things with this Texas abortion law, which is completely crazy, not because it's pro-life, but because there's something here called standing, which is if I punch you in the face, you can sue me for damages or a criminal thing, but someone else is not. But with this Texas abortion law, if you give me, as a pregnant man, an abortion, someone else can sue either of us. It makes no legal sense.
What?
Right. It makes no legal sense. It's a very basic principle of jurisprudence, but this crazy law has done, and please double check what I'm saying because it's so crazy. I'm hoping I'm misunderstanding it. But what's good about it is it's keeping away the awfuls, the affluent white female liberals, because they know this is not a country for them. So they are just being driven away in droves.
So are these like chess moves towards independence?
Yes. Whether by design or otherwise. I don't think by design, but clearly if you have California where it's, abortion every day and I'll pay for it. And here, if I find out you give someone an abortion, I can get involved and put either of you in jail. These are different cultures.
And so I think longer term, will there have to be borders on states?
Yeah, that's the problem. Texas doesn't have an effective southern border now because of the Washington.
Well, that I understand. And the flood of I'm just following the regular news updates of people being murdered and killed.
Yes, and assaulted.
And assaulted and raped and kids being molested and people are being sent back and coming back in.
Yeah.
Like, is there truth behind the idea that these people are being brought in for votes? Or is it just progressiveness gone mad? They're
not being brought in for votes,
but
allowed in for votes. Yes, that's the one. Because if we have this bizarre, I don't think any other country on earth has it, and please double check me. We have birthright citizenship. If you're born in American soil, you're a citizen. Like you don't have to do any work. So you have these, they didn't like the term anchor babies. You come over, you have a kid in American soil, that kid is a citizen, and that kid will keep you and your whole family here, even though the rest of you have no right to be here. Kind of under current policy whole, because you're going to separate a mom from her kid. So it becomes a whole thing. So I think that is something that really needs to be looked at and reconsidered. And if you're going to have all these voters and you say with a straight face, listen, if you let the other party in, they're going to kick out grandma, abuela. Whereas if we're here, she'll have full Social Security and Medicare and Medicaid. Who's going to get their votes? It's not even a question.
It's also fucking nuts.
Yes. Yes.
Oh, well.
But on the other hand, I'd much rather have like 100,000 people here from Mexico than 100,000 Harvard graduates, because one is going to be much more malevolent, destructive, and one, are going to be hardworking and for the most part poor. There's going to be some more crime, but in terms of that crime, it's going to be much less than the crime of destroying this country.
Yeah, I mean, it's incredible watching, like from the outside, watching it, just watching the crumbling of this country, and it's so sad because you see it all at a policy level, but you meet people and America's full of incredible people.
Oh yeah,
incredible, hardworking people, principled people who want to build this country.
Yes,
and yeah. It's fucked. By the way, I put a note down to tell you about something earlier.
Yes.
This was about the samurai wallet people. Did you hear about these people? So they created a wallet. It's a Bitcoin wallet, and they have a technology in it they call Whirlpool. And so the problem with the Bitcoin blockchain is you can trace every transaction.
Right.
So if I send something to you, you send it to Kurt,
yeah.
they can follow the whole thing. Fine. It's good to have a transparent ledger for some reason so we can verify the 21 million. But some people don't want to be traced.
Sure.
Some people don't want you to know I bought a Bible or whatever. Just stay out of my fucking business. We should have transaction privacy. So these samurai guys, they built a wallet where essentially you make a transaction, I make a transaction, Kurt does. They mix them all up and they send them back, and so nobody knows where they come
that's
from.
smart. Okay.
Very useful tool
Yes.
for privacy. There's another one called Wasabi. It's a tool that's regularly used by activists who are campaigning in places like Russia to hide where the transactions come from, so they can spend money. Like Navalny, used to, his group used to use it, but they used to make jokes about it. So they used to put memes on Twitter, and one of them was like, "You can use this to evade sanctions, money for enemies."
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah, it's funny.
That's funny.
They've been arrested. It's closed down. They're facing 20 years in prison.
Arrested by who? The Biden administration?
So
In the U.S.?
Yeah, no, in the US, American. The Biden administration, I assume it's FBI, and I assume it's FinCEN. It's the FinCEN regulations they've been said to break, but also federal laws about. And look, and the truth is,
it's hard. It's every year it gets harder and harder for my anarchist mind to understand how people can look at government as something other than organized crime.
of course.
It's not, of course.
Well, it is for me. Right?
Okay.
Yeah, it is for me. But I still think a lot of people have been gaslit into accepting no privacy. Because you had Facebook who took away your privacy.
Right,
you have
right.
every hack, and you have governments, you have the Snowden situation. Like, people have just accepted it. But these guys,
Because I have nothing to hide.
I have nothing to hide.
Right.
Yeah.
So why should you have something to hide?
Yeah.
Right?
What are you hiding?
Yeah.
We need this for the pedophiles. We need you to be able to access your phone because of the pedophiles. Throw a pedophile or a terrorist in there, what do you say?
Right.
But yeah, they're facing 20 years in jail. One of them's currently under arrest here. One has been, I think, arrested in Portugal, set to be extradited. And after that, Wasabi closed down. So all the activists that were using the tool to hide their transactions within authoritarian states where they're activists, they now don't have a tool to use. But even worse, there are Bitcoin wallet providers like Phoenix. It's just a Bitcoin wallet that uses the Lightning Network, which has some privacy features. They've left because they're fearful then that's going to be the next crackdown. So they're coming after hard. Yeah.
What do you want me to say? I mean, these people I can't say what I should say.
Yeah,
I think.
exactly. You can't say it. But so they're coming at everyone. So fuck them. Do you want to go and eat?
Yes, let's do it.
Let's go and get a steak. Michael Malice, thank you very much.
My
Good
pleasure.
To see you. See you later, everyone.